When you learn to satisfy the needs of the different parts of yourself, then they chill out and you can do the thing you need to do, right? So it's a practice of really learning to nurture and take care of and be aware of all the different parts of yourself.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey there, No Labels, No Limits podcast listeners. Welcome back. I'm Sarah Box, your host of the podcast. And you know, here at No Labels, No Limits, we are on a mission to help individuals, teams, and organizations think outside the box, move beyond limiting beliefs, and create a profound impact in their own lives and the lives of the people they help and serve. And we do this by sharing accomplished guests, inspiring guests, and those who have challenged or busted through their own limiting labels and beliefs to be who they are today, recognizing that they're still on a path. There is no finish line here. But it's important for me to continue learning from others, and it's my joy to get to introduce you to people who fill that niche of being change makers in the No Labels, No Limits spot. So today we are joined by Scarlett Stanhope, and she is affectionately known as the Biz Hippie. I'm often called a hippie at the grocery store by my husband, so I love Scarlett from the get-go. She's a transformative coach who empowers coaches, healers, and entrepreneurs to master their money and embrace their worth. And having transitioned from high-heeled restaurant manager to barefoot business guru, Scarlett combines that tangible money management strategy approach with profound coaching techniques. But wait, Scarlett didn't always live this way. At the age of 18, she had already begun her professional journey, managing restaurants and pursuing her degree in business management, accounting, and finance. Kind of the opposite of the whole barefoot guru place. And her life was all business all the time, despite having horrible relationships with people and money, struggles with depression, head-to-toe eczema, and frequent migraines. And it took a cannabis-induced near-death experience to shake her to her core and start a slow crawl back from rock bottom. Aren't you just curious about her now? Her journey from workaholic to wellness advocate is inspiring. It inspires me already. And it's also a testament to the power of personal transformation. So today I'm going to ask her to share with us more about her transformational journey, mastering money, professional development, empowering others. And, you know, as typical, we'll probably go random and she and I will take a whole different track somewhere along the way. So with that, let's officially welcome this week's guest, Scarlett Stanhope, to the podcast. Hi, Scarlett.
Oh my gosh. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for that incredible intro. That was amazing.
It was so fun. You're very fun. And like we were chatting before we started, there's just a good vibe about you. If you are listening to the audio, you can't see it, but Scarlett has a very interesting background. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. So just say a little bit about the background behind you and what inspired you to put that there.
Yeah. So what it is it's an elephant tapestry. There's a story behind it. So I actually, when I was in college, instead of doing a traditional internship, did an internship abroad. And so I did a business consulting internship in Barcelona for a month. And that was the best month of my life. I felt like I lived a whole other lifetime. And this is a tapestry that I bought on the beach while I was there. And it has been the background of my office for the entire length of time in my business. Originally, I believe I hung it up just in my room for decoration. And then I, built my office around it and it just became a permanent fixture. And then as my office has evolved and moved to different locations, it is still the permanent fixture of my business. And it really brings in together all the biz hippie vibes.
It really does resonate. So one of the things that cracked me up is, you were in this really executive restaurant management, but you talked about doing your days in 4-inch heels. And I'm thinking, why would you do that? So first of all, really, just how did you go through the journey, and what was that whole rock bottom piece where you just had to figure it out? Will you share with us that, and then we can go into some of your other areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it really began long before I was in that scenario, because it was the way that I had lived my life up until that point created this scenario, which I found myself in. Because, growing up, I was always really a type A, high achiever personality. I got straight A's in school. I was a perfectionist. I actually went to boarding school for 7 years, from the ages of 7 to 14. So I was surrounded by constant authority. And so just being in that environment all the time, I had to be perfect all the time. And that caused a lot of stress, a lot of migraines that I was even on medication for at a very young age for a very long time. And I didn't even realize that I was, hiding pieces of who I was in order to, quote, survive and fit in with my friends or not so much friends, and survive the schooling environment. And so just growing up with my personalities of success and achievement, I started my young adulthood, my teenage years. I was working really hard, getting right into the restaurant industry, getting a job as fast as possible, being really smart with my money. I opened my first savings account when I was 7 years old. Thanks, Mom. And I just went for success, but this version of success that was impressed upon me from society, this idea of success of get the money, get the job title, only do the thing that is going to make the most money, that's going to be the most successful job. And I had a lot of stress around who do I want to be? What do I want to do with my life? Because on the one hand, I could follow my passions and my creativity, but that doesn't feel like I'm rising up to my potential. It feels like I should do more with my life, because the truth is I'm a skilled person. I'm good at things. I can succeed in, high achieving environments. I could be a corporate person. So anyway, I had been living my life from this place of forward thinking, high achieving success. And as a result, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I was incredibly disassociated from my body and from myself. And I had just found myself in this endless downward spiral of my life that I felt like I had no control over at all. I was like, life is just happening around me. In fact, I'm waiting for life to start. When does it actually start happening? And that was one of the wake-up calls that I had, was realizing, oh my gosh, life is happening right now, right this second, and it's up to me to start living it. And so at that rock bottom point, I was burnt out, exhausted, had been working, I had been working 7 days a week because I was going to school full time for years and then working really late nights on the weekends. So I had just been going and going and going. On the one hand, it looked like I had a lot of material success, right? By the time I was 18, I was managing a staff that was mostly older than me. I had the keys to the restaurant. I felt so cool. I had a business card. I had $30,000 saved in a savings account. No one else my age could say that. I had paid my way through college all on my own, and I had all these measures of success, but deep down, I was really unfulfilled. I was unfulfilled. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I was in a toxic relationship with somebody. I was in a toxic work environment, and I didn't even realize how messed up I was. I didn't even realize how hurt and how much suffering I was, even though it felt, now looking back, the universe was screaming at me. My body was screaming at me. It was so uncomfortable to be in my own skin that my whole body was covered in eczema, right? You'd think you would notice at some point, oh, something's not right when I'm suffering this much, when I'm driving home at 3 o'clock in the morning, like screaming at the top of my lungs, blasting the radio and crying. It's like, no, I didn't notice until I had my own near-death experience for me. And it wasn't an actual near-death experience, but to me, it felt like a near-death experience where I had way too much cannabis, marijuana, accidentally one night, totally by mistake, and literally thought I was having seizures and dying. And I was pretty young at this point and didn't know about cannabis. It was just experimenting. So in my mind, I was like, of course I can overdose from this drug. Like there was not a single shred of safety in my world. I was just like, this is it. This is the end. I'm having seizures. I'm dying. I'm not going to make it out of this alive. And it was 4 a.m. I was lying next to my boyfriend at the time. And I remember lying there and thinking I'm dying. And a strong part of me was like, okay, well, I guess I can just like lay here and do nothing and like let myself die and let this be the end. Like that actually feels like the easier option, you know? That's what I've been doing my whole entire life, is just passively waiting to see what happens to me and not taking action on my life. But then there was another part of me, and I will never forget it. This part of me came up and said, you know what? If I'm going to die, I do not want to die here in this room with this person. And so I like got up, got out of that bed, walked out of the house, sat in the car at 4 a.m. and called my mom and was like, you have to help me. And that was like the first time I had ever reached out for help and support, especially since I had really self-isolated myself from all my friends, all my family. And that was the first step I took to recognize, like, I am not okay. I need help and something needs to change. And then it was a slow crawl from there of rediscovering, who am I? What do I want? Who do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to live, as opposed to just going with the default autopilot that I thought I was supposed to be doing. And then that led me to my journey to where I am today.
So let me ask you, did your mom see any of this, or had you kind of cut her out at that point?
I totally had cut her out. I mean, she knew I was like in a funk, you know, one of those like late teen funks, because I was just like, on the rare instances when I would see her, you know, which was rare, I would be like disconnected, frustrated, project all my anger onto her. And then years later when we talked, she was like, yeah, I really didn't know at all what was going on with you, because I was just away, you know, I was like busy at school, at work. And when I wasn't, I was just like zombied out, binge watching shows on Netflix, you know, and I avoided being home and being around family at all.
Yeah. So I asked that because, you know, sometimes people think, well, why wouldn't her mom know, her family know and stuff? But we do that. We can pull ourselves away. We can go into our roles, and then those people see us in our roles. So we look normal in our roles, even if we're falling apart, right? We're falling apart in their expected way to see us, you know?
Exactly.
So, but what a brave thing for you to do, to get up, choose to live, walk out and sit in your car and call for help.
Yeah. Especially because part of my challenge that I had was I had this whole idea that like my mom is this like perfect person and I didn't want to disappoint her. And like I was hiding the fact that I had ever even had marijuana before in my life ever, you know? So it wasn't only just the like asking for help and doing something different. It was also like admitting to my mom, like, how much a failure I am, you know?
What was her reaction? I'm curious.
Oh my gosh. Her reaction was, you're not dying. Everything's fine. Let me come get you. So she drove a half hour to come pick me up in the middle of the night. And then she proceeded to tell me stories on the car ride home of her imperfect life that I didn't even realize. I was like, I didn't know that you were this way. I just was trying to live up to this expectation of you being perfect, which is apparently wildly inaccurate.
It's inaccurate for all of us, but we do put that on other people, which means we put it on ourselves kind of in the reverse, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, that's powerful. Really powerful. So talk a little bit about, you know, like you said, it was a long road back. It's not like, oh, I had this epiphany and all of a sudden life is different. What were some of the steps that you took?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one of the things that I had to do that took a while and was really challenging, especially right in the beginning, was I had to start peeling away some of the things that I had been doing. Like I was putting myself in these bad, dangerous situations, being surrounded by people that were not, good for me to be around.
They did not have your best interest at heart.
Exactly, right. And like my work environment and things like that, and this relationship I was in, I had to start choosing to get away from these things. And that was challenging, to recognize my power of choice and decision and like really take back the power and control. So it took me a while to end that relationship. And then it took me a while to like transition from that job location to another job location in the same company, and then like slowly fade out of that, but still like choosing more and more of what I wanted. And so that was one thing, was choosing, realizing that I'm in control and that I can decide and that I have the power to choose. Another huge part of that was learning, who am I and what do I want? Because I didn't even have the concept that I had a choice. I remember a little later on when I went to my first ever like personal development conference. I went to LA with my mom and my stepdad, her husband, and me, and we went to see Mary Morrissey's Dream Builder Live conference. And so Mary Morrissey's been in the personal growth and development game for a while. I don't hear other people talk about her, but she's like OG personal development. So I went to this, and we do a visioning exercise, which she calls the time machine. And you like flash forward to your vision. Everything's awesome. And you're like telling the person in front of you about your awesome life. And that exercise was so challenging for me because I like hadn't even allowed myself to realize this was an option. I was like, I have never even thought about this before. I didn't even know I was allowed to think about it. I didn't even know it was a choice. And it was just like opening a door to limitless possibilities. But at the same time, that was terrifying and uncomfortable because I had never done that before. And I'm in this exercise and I'm doing it with my mom, and she makes a comment. She's like, you're supposed to speak in like present tense, because I had like shifted into past tense, and I just like break down and start sobbing, and I'm like, I can't do this. So it was really challenging, but discovering like, who am I? What do I want? How do I feel? Because I didn't even know what emotions were or what was present, because I had just repressed everything for so long. So I remember one time this is really silly, but it's such a distinct moment for me. One time I stuck my head out of a window, right? I opened my living room window. I stuck my head out and looked outside, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I love this. This is so much fun. And it felt like I had discovered something that I enjoyed, like just for me, because I enjoyed it, and it blew my mind. So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of coming back home to myself, discovering who am I, what do I want, and then actively practicing making choices in alignment with that, and then starting to uncover, okay, what life do I want to live? Who do I want to be? What are my values? What's important to me? And just committing to choosing that every single day.
Yeah, well, and it's a constant choose.
Mm-hmm.
Or choose to ignore yourself. But even once you start down the path that you're on, even if you make a choice that's not in your best interest, don't you find you feel it's wrong right away? You're like, oh, redo.
Yeah.
I'm not going there. Yeah. Or bad idea. Let's fix it. Let's make a different choice. And I think it's so easy to, especially, when we're young and we have these things like we know in our heart, right? Unless it's already out of us. But there's that guidance that's like cold potato, hot potato. No, wait, cold or hotter. I don't know which the game is. I'm so bad at mixing my metaphors. But like we know when we're going in the right direction because it feels right. And sometimes even when we know, like I know for me in corporate, I knew I could succeed. I knew I was doing a good job, but it was at odds with how I wanted to be, like square peg, round hole kind of thing. So I'm wondering, did you feel any of that as well?
Like when I was younger?
Not today, but I mean, yes. Like,
Yeah.
did you ever feel like, well, before you got so good at fitting in and being so skilled, unless you did, like you have no memory of not being that person? Yeah. That might be an unfair question because high achievers often feel that from young. Right?
I definitely started very young.
Yeah.
I definitely started very young. And I think when I was young, around like 7 or 8 and was in school, I was surrounded by people all the time. Like I lived with 8, 9 other women for all of my like fundamental years of development. And I just want to say, like, my school experience was great. And this was a great school. And I love this school and it gave me so many opportunities. But just like all of our lives, right, we can have perfect looking lives and still acquire like trauma and things that we need to heal. Sure. So I remember distinctly being very young and being a very like easily emotional person. And I had a friend who would look at me and say like, or I would get really emotional anytime I'd get in trouble at all. Like even if an authority figure made any small comment that like wasn't a huge deal, but I was like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. Like I would feel that so yeah. deeply, and I would bring up emotions in me. And then I'd have a friend who would be like, you're gonna cry. And then I'd have to like hold in my tears, but then her just even saying like, you're going to cry, like would make me cry. So I like learned I have to be perfect so I don't get in trouble because that makes me feel horrible. And then if I am hurting and I am upset, like I have to really practice like holding back my tears and holding back my emotions because I can't show them because then I'll get made fun of. So like those seeds were planted very young.
And that's a no-win. That's a no-win situation, right? Show your emotions, you lose. Cram your emotions down, you lose.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it took like many years of instilling those beliefs in me to get me to my rock bottom point. And then it took me several years to unwind those. But I also feel like some of those things happened even before that. Like, there was
like you came with them.
Yeah, or like, that 1-year-old, that already implanted stuff for me, of course.
Well, we're super impressionable. I mean, they also know from brain studies and watching, it's like when we're in utero, we are being influenced by our parents' environment, right? And the emotions and all of that. I don't think we can underestimate or discount what that does, to us. And I'm not a brain scientist, but I love to think about and read about that. Like how is this trickle down? How does trauma go intergenerational? What stories do we start telling ourselves at a young age so we can survive and feel safe, right? And I just like that little girl who couldn't cry, who wanted everything to be perfect and then felt so bad when it wasn't. I just go, oh man, it's all good, Scarlett.
Yes, finally I've learned.
Well, and I have other adult friends who are my age who talk about like being told, don't cry, you're a crybaby. And this one guy who's a boy says, yeah, I was told you're a crybaby. And, and to this day, like he goes, I hate to cry because it makes me feel weak and a failure. And I'm thinking, it makes you human. That's all it does is it makes you human. But it still sucks because of other messaging, right? So you make this flip, you go through all this, and now you are the hippie biz coach. And so how did you, from all of your corporate and this piece, pick hippie? That's my generation. So that's one of the things I loved about being the biz hippie for you. What resonated with you about that? And how'd you get there to doing the work you're doing?
Yeah, hippie's coming back. back, man. Hippie, it's already back.
It's been back a bit, yeah.
I think I was always a hippie, honestly. Even though I like masked it for several years with my blazers and full face of makeup and 4-inch heels, like I really hid who I was and was like, yeah, corporate tycoon success. But deep down, I was always a hippie, you know, and on my self-discovery journey, what I realized was I was rediscovering myself. I was like, oh, this is the person that I've always been. I just forgot for a while. And so, you know, it really came back to the environment and my connection with nature. That's really where like hippie comes from for me. I care so much about being connected with nature, being disconnected from like technology as much as I possibly can, and like really just living in a sustainable and eco-friendly way, and just being so grateful for the abundance of nature that is here. You know, I believe that this whole world is self-sustaining. Like that's the way that nature functions. And so in my rediscovery journey, this is what I found. I was like, oh, this is who I am. I care about the environment. I care about sustainability. I care about being connected to the earth, you know, like anytime I go outside, I'm barefoot. And that's just the way I am, you know? And so just being fun and creative and free flowing and living from a place of inspiration and joy rather than like have to and scarcity and need. And all of that just is hippie to me. Like it just is. And so it came to me one day. One day I was like, it was a magical download from the universe. It was like the business hippie, like that's who I will be, which then became the biz hippie. And it also came from a combination of combining these different aspects of myself, right? On the one hand, I am total hippie, woo-woo, yoga instructor, Reiki practitioner, life coach. But then on the other hand, I am also very strategic and structured and logical. And I have a business background, and I was analyzing infomercials when I was 5 years old. You know, like I'm good at the system of strategy. And so really the biz hippie is combining these aspects of myself together to say we can have both, right? We can have the logical and the flow. Like we can have the masculine and the feminine, and we can be all of who we are.
So and if we don't embrace both sides, I'm curious. Well, tell me what you think. If we don't embrace both sides, can we be who we are?
No. And this is something that I coach a lot for my clients, is this idea of the philosophy that we have multiple selves, multiple parts within us, right? And these different parts want different things, need different things, have different values, and are all here for a reason that is here to serve us in some way. They are here to serve us. And even in like the personal growth and development world, there's this idea of like, I need to kill the inner critic. I need to get rid of these parts of myself that are not helpful and aren't getting me to where I want to go. Or in our day-to-day lives, it's like, oh, I have to kill off the sissy. I have to kill off the, you know, all these different pieces of ourselves. But what that does is it is segmenting our energy, right? It's segmenting pieces of ourselves so that we become less effective and less whole and less fulfilled. And so what I have found is a huge part of the practice is learning to not eliminate parts of ourselves so that we can be better, but to learn to love and embody and embrace all aspects of ourselves, so that we can, one, be who we are, and also like be our whole power too, like own all of our power so that we can live our lives and create in this world.
So say someone's working with you. How do you help them do that instead of saying, I've got to amputate this part of myself, but to integrate it and recognize it so that they can own it and thrive?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I do is tell people about this concept, because people do not know about it, even though the second that I say it, it becomes obvious, right? Because we think about this all the time. We know this to be true, where you're like, well, part of me doesn't want to go to the gym, but another part of me does. It's like we're already aware of this, our conflicting selves and our conflicting values. So simply sharing the concept and inviting my clients to bring more awareness to the different parts of themselves is valuable. And then also sharing the fact that, or asking my clients to check in with the different selves and go deeper and say, okay, why is this present? What does this part of me want? What does this part of me need? And how is this need to serve me in some way? And having that shift really helps the embodying and the bracing, because you're not just seeing the struggle, the disadvantage coming from that self of like, my weakling self came out and now I look bad in front of my friends and you suck and I need to get rid of you. But instead recognizing what's the benefit? What's the purpose? How are you here to help me? And it's all these ways in which the different parts of ourselves are here to create safety, which is important. It's a good thing. It's valuable to have. So starting to flip, like actually go deep into the selves that are present and are causing internal conflict and are holding you back from what you want to do, and asking those selves why they're here and what they need. And then when you learn to satisfy the needs of the different parts of yourself, then they chill out and you can do the thing you need to do, right? So it's a practice of really learning to nurture and take care of and be aware of all the different parts of yourself.
I like that you use that example, because we do say that without thinking. You know, it's like, well, part of me and part of me. It's like, right. So which part? Which part? And tying it to the safety, because all of that chatter really is about our survival, right? Mm-hmm. So we really can't blame ourselves for that, but ignoring it just becomes an excuse for not going, what are you trying to tell me? You know, what do I need to, I'm in the relationship here with all my parts. So what should I or do I need to do? So what's the hardest part, do you think, when you start to work with someone in this area who hasn't worked in the way that you work? What are some of the challenges or the initial kind of resistance things that folks feel or express?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the biggest things is because I do a lot of my work around money, right? That's really the avenue through which I do the work that I do. And it's so much bigger than our money, right? Because our money is how we create our reality and live our lives. And so your relationship with your money is a reflection of yourself. But that's just the avenue through which I look at you and your relationship to yourself and how you create your life in your world. One of the biggest challenges that I see is a fear of looking at it, right? It's like we take our money and we tuck it into a closet and we're like, I don't want to look at it. I'm afraid to look at it. I don't want to see what's happening because this, that, and the other, because it'll mean this, because it'll be the end of the world, because I'm afraid of what I'll see. And that's one of the biggest challenges. And it's around our money, but also around ourself, our stories, our beliefs, the parts of ourself that are keeping us stuck. And so the very first thing that I do with my clients is go deep into awareness, right? We become aware of what are the stories that create your identity. What do you believe about yourself and who you think you are, especially around money, especially around being enough, having enough, being worthy and deserving of living your life and having the resources to create that, being worthy and deserving of receiving and not just giving, right? And then developing awareness around all of this, and then awareness around the different parts of ourselves. Who are we? And what are we choosing? What are we creating? What's important to us? What do we need? And then bringing awareness to our money and actually creating what I call a financial blueprint and clearly seeing what choices am I making every single day about the life that I'm living by how I'm choosing to spend my money. And when we bring awareness to that as well, then we get a complete picture of what is happening with our lives, what we're creating, why we're creating it, and what results we're getting. And once you have that awareness, that's when you're able to do everything else. Like take that awareness and make it intentional and consciously create the life that you want to live. But the biggest hurdle is the first hurdle, which is just being willing to look at it and take that first step to go deeper. Because once you take the monster out of the closet, it's way less scary than you think it is, right? Because it's no longer left to the imagination.
We make things hard. I make things harder for myself than they need to be. It's like, and sometimes it's in cycles, right? Like it's like, oh, that's no big deal. That's no big deal. But things change, businesses get bigger, and you're thinking, ooh, that might be a big deal.
Yeah.
I'll put it off just a bit. So I think something you said in there about money and but also what does it say to us about us, and depending upon what money represented in our families, in our business, how much we were paid, all of those things. Does it have do people relate to it when you're working with them in that way of like, I'm a failure, I'm a success based on a number?
What's interesting is in some ways, yes, but also no. Like the number, surprisingly, there's a lack of awareness around the number. And it's just an idea, right? A lot of the people that I work with have very little awareness around what's happening with their money at all. And so it's just this idea of I should be making more, or I don't have enough, or I'm broke. And it's these ideas that are just based off of our perspective of what is happening and our perspective of ourselves and the emotions we're feeling that are usually rooted in fear and lack and scarcity, right? But they're not often accurate. They're not often based on the actual numbers. And so there's actually a lot of lacking in the numbers when people are, creating their idea around themselves. And it's just the idea of what they think the number should be.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I was coaching a co-leaders of this organization yesterday, and they had this, I've known them more than a decade, and they have gone from small and they've created some really great results. But they're so busy doing, right? And she goes, I just feel like there's no end. And I says, well, here's the bad news. You're in business. There is no end. There is no there. So tell me, she goes, I want to feel like I'm succeeding. And I said, oh, but part of it was like, what would success look like? She goes, I wouldn't have to keep doing the same stuff. And I said, are you doing the same stuff? She goes, yeah, with the new people. And I said, oh, those are signals of success, right? But it was labeled as not enough, not good enough, because it wasn't stable, and I'm thinking, well, once things get stable, then you're static. And so she went, oh, I get it. But there was a part of her, we came back to it later. She goes, that made me so sad. I said, why? And she goes, because I thought there'd be a break where people wouldn't bring me problems or these things wouldn't happen. And it's always often the conversation is we need more. And I'm thinking you might not need more. You might need to do less and make a different choice. Right. And it's hard for us because we get in the thing. I'm reflecting back to what you said, like I can do it. I'm really skilled. I'm really good. And we forget to ask ourselves, but should I be doing that? Is that best for me? So can you think of one of your clients or a couple of them and then share with us some of the things that have happened for them as a result of getting clear on how your coaching, through your coaching and your support?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tie in a lot to what you just said too, because there's so much good stuff in there. One thing that I do often with my clients is redefining success. Yeah. And that looks different for each person. But again, it comes back to my own experience of like chasing this finish line that doesn't exist. And I'm not even sure why I'm trying to get there. and it's based off of this just like arbitrary idea that was implanted in me and isn't actually important to me at all. And so redefining what is success and what does that actually mean to be your best and to be good. So that's one piece that we do, which helps really change the game. Yeah. Another piece is getting really clear on your vision and what life you want to live and what's important to you and who you are, and then learning to cultivate and live that vision right now. And that's a lot of what I do is, cultivating the belief of how did this already exist and how can I shift my perspective to see my vision as true and present now.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so what this does, and then when you combine this with embodying, embracing all aspects of yourself, transforming your stories rooted in lack and scarcity and not enoughness into stories of abundance, right? Learning to have awareness around what choices and decisions you're making and why you're making those decisions, and then making all of those decisions really conscious, intentional, and aligned, and using your money strategically to make those decisions about what is most important to you and what you value. Magic happens. Like, you become the creator of your reality. You are the one in control of your life. And even if it's scary or unstable, or sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad and not always perfect, you can still be in your vision. You can still be your most abundant self. So some examples of what this looks like is I had a client who left her 9-to-5 job within 6 months of working together. She also moved out of her apartment, went full time in her business, and started traveling around the country and the world. I worked with another client who also left a side gig that wasn't serving her and found other more creative, more aligned ways to bring in more money, including her business. She also left her apartment and started traveling around the country as well. I have another client too who had a moment where her bank account went very, very low, right? And because we look at the numbers on our calls, like we know what's happening with your money. Her bank account had less than $10 in it on our call. And she looks at me and she goes, you know what? I feel so abundant right now. I know it could be even less than this and I would still feel so abundant because I know I'm the one in control and I know that more money's coming, and I know that with confidence because I know my numbers and I'm in my most abundant energy, right? So to not have that constant fear and stress of money draining your energy and impacting your life, right? So that's one of the biggest wins I see with my clients is money stress goes away or is drastically reduced, and then they get to make decisions about what lives they want to live, and they achieve goals like rapid fire, right? Like credit card debt is eliminated, travel comes in, and just so much more ease and flow over their lives.
What does it mean? You just said this phrase, and I would like for you to define it for us, because sometimes I hear people use it or something similar, but I always wonder, how is that person defining it? So to be in your energy of abundance, what do you mean by that, Scarlett?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What does that look like?
Yeah. Sometimes there's this idea of abundance is an amount of number. Like when I'm super rich and have tons of money, then I'll be abundant. But abundance is not based on a number. It's based off of how you feel and how you choose to live your life. When we create our lives through how we choose to take action, right? And we take action with how we choose to spend our time, our energy, or our money. Anytime you do any of those three things, you are creating your reality. You're getting results from those actions that you're taking. And often the default that many people operate from is taking those actions from a place of fear, from a place of not enoughness, from a place of, I have to get away from this situation that I don't like. And when you take action from that place, from that energy, you're just creating more of those results, right? Because you create what you focus on. If fear and lack is driving and motivating your actions and how you spend your time, your energy, and your money, you're just creating more and more of that. You're not getting away from it at all. So that's to live in scarcity and fear and operate from that place. Whereas instead, to be in your abundance and live in abundance is to be operating and living and functioning and making decisions from a place in alignment with what you want and the life you want to live, right? So feeling I am already abundant now. I am safe. I have everything I need. I trust myself. I always have my own back. I'm confident. I know what I want. And that's what I'm moving towards. That's what I'm choosing. That's what I'm embodying. That's how I feel. I'm creating my vision. I'm living my vision now. And if you take action from that place with how you spend your time, your energy, and your money, that's abundance. And you can create that no matter how much money you have. You can live in a place where you feel like you have enough, where you feel like you are good enough, where you feel like no matter what, you'll always be okay, and that you always have your own back so you can trust yourself. And then from that, when you take action from that place, your abundance amplifies and you get results in alignment with that. And you literally live your vision right now in the present.
And when you're in that space, doesn't that energy just resonate out to other people? Like they can feel your vibe when you're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredibly impactful. The vibe that you share out, but also when you spend your money in alignment with you, that's how we change the world too, because your money is so powerful. You are having an impact on the world every single day. And people might feel small and feel like I have no power in this world. It's like, no, you have power. You're wielding it just unintentionally. And so when you be even more intentional with your energy, but also your output, your money, like that is transformative, not only for you, but also this world that we are all creating together.
Yeah. And I do think that intentionality and looking, when you talk about looking at the numbers, but also like thinking about when I spend my money this way or when I invest my money this way, I'm supporting, for me, one of my priorities is supporting local business people here, right? I might be able to get it cheaper somewhere else, but I'll pay the extra because these people are in business. I'm in business, right? I appreciate what that means to put yourself out there that way. And also the value of what they're selling, like what thought went into it, that type of stuff. But we do have great economic power individually, and I think we forget that because everything's commoditized, right? It's like it's just a thing, but that thing represents energy. Yeah. Or am I off of what you're trying?
Oh, totally. I think you're spot on 100% because it comes back to what do you value at your core and what's important to you. I'm the same, like local business, local produce, organic, healthy, aligned, sustainable. Like, those are things that are important to me. I care about these things. And so when I spend, I'm going to buy those things, not only because they're important to me, but also because I want to create more of that in the world. Right. And in order to create more of it, we have to support it, right? You vote when you spend your money. And
you do vote every time.
Right. What have we been voting for? What have you been voting for? And is it what is genuinely most important to you and the kind of life that you want to live and the kind of world you want to live in?
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. Because oftentimes I'll hear people, like you were saying, like, I can't do anything about this. I'm thinking, I don't know who told you that, but you showing up and investing, spending, whatever language, I always think about my money as just something going through. It's like, I don't want to hang on to it too long because someone else is going to use it and it'll come back to me. It usually does. And in greater numbers than it went out. But it can get scary. You can think, oh, I hope I have enough to cover payroll or whatever. But then there's that other thing of like, how great is it to be helping people have work? How great is that? So you are such a ray of light. And I love talking with you. I would like to ask you, I know you have something that you have on your website that you can share with folks if they want to check it out. Would you share a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my signature program is Empowered Abundance, where we do all of the work that I just described throughout this whole podcast episode, where you can totally learn to master your money, wield your power, and be in control of your life. But what I love to offer to my podcast episode guests, listeners, is a free abundance activation session where we will get on a one-on-one call for half an hour and we will get crystal clear on where you are now, where you want to go, and how you can get there and how you can create that reality. So I would absolutely love to, share in your journey, your experience, and support you in creating your most aligned and abundant life and stepping into your empowered abundance through one of these abundance activation sessions.
That's such a great gift. I mean, it's very generous, but it also helps people in a very safe way to look and go, oh, that's possible. How great would that be? And sometimes just getting that door opened is all it takes to have help someone step through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what is, when you look, we're almost, as we are recording this, we're just wrapping up. We're halfway through August of 2024. But in my mind, we're heading into the last quarter of the year because I'm usually in my head a little advanced of the calendar. What are you looking forward to for the end of this year and going into 2025, Scarlett?
That's a great question. I'm looking forward to continued expansion. I have been in business for 4 years now, and it's been a slow and steady process. Has really been my journey in business. But I always say that growth is an exponential curve, right? It's very kind of slow and flat at first. And then once you hit that curve point, you just rocket ship straight up. So I have been in my curve for this year. And so I'm very excited for continued expansion, continued impact, because that's really why I do this work, is to, share the journey that I've experienced, the belief that I have that we get to live our best lives, we get to thrive, and it's up to us to create that, but that it's 100% possible for us to do that. And so getting to share that more and more with more people is a huge thing that I'm super looking forward to. I also have some travel planned, and I'm excited about that because I'm huge into travel. I've traveled all over the country and all over the world, so I'm very excited for some upcoming travel and to continue my own, free-flowing biz hippie journey.
Okay, biz hippie queen, I love it. So I'm going to give you the last word of encouragement, advice, whatever you want to share with our audience, and you're going to take us out of this episode. What would you like to share?
Yes, I would love to share that whatever it is you desire, whatever it is you want to create, whatever life you want to live, it is so possible for you to do that. Even if it might not feel that way, you have so much more control and power over your life and the life that you're living than you think. And all you have to do is decide to take that control. And then every single day, every step you take, every action you take, continue to choose you and continue to live for you. And then the rest will just fall into place.
Okay, No Labels, No Limits podcast listeners, you heard it from Scarlett. Do this for us. If you heard something today that has opened your eyes, share this episode with a friend. Share the link, post it, repost on your social, whatever it is, because I would bet that you can't listen to this and not be able to have taken away something powerful. So share this. Or if you have a question, drop it into the notes, reach out. We'll have all of the contacts in the show notes. Reach out and definitely hop on her abundance activation session on her website. And until next week in the No Labels, No Limits.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/no labels, no limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.